Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 3, entitled The Birth of Krishna, Text 47. Shukadev Goswami is herein continuing his description of Lord Krishna's appearance within this world. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada cites Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the authority of Haribamsa, how Krishna simultaneously took birth both in Gokul as the son of Nanda and Yashoda, as well as in Mathura as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. The emphasis of the Acharyas, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in describing this incredible simultaneous appearance of the Lord, is to highlight the special, intimate love of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, specifically Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai. In previous verses, Vasudeva and Devaki, they passed through inconceivable challenges, all for the sake of being instruments of Krishna's grace within this world. When the Lord wants to take birth, especially in his original transcendental form, descending from the spiritual world, he does so to teach the world a great lesson of what truly is bhakti, and does so by glorifying. Can we put this on? There's no. Glorifying the love of his devotees. Vasudeva and Devaki were surrendered to help the Lord's mission. And it is the tendency of devotees to conceive that if I'm doing the Lord's will, everything should go very much according to my expectations for a life of happiness and prosperity within this world. But it simply does not happen like that. Because in this world, dukkhalayam ashashvatam, it is a place of suffering. It is a place where we will be tested in so many ways. And the test of our bhakti, tatenu kampam susamikshamano, Lord Brahma has explained, the real qualification of receiving this supreme liberation is whatever may happen in the complexities and the dualities of material existence, we take shelter of the Lord with humility, with gratitude, and with a sense of deep urgency. Srila Prabhupada quotes a Bengali saying that when the mother wants to teach the daughter-in-law, she does so by chastising the daughter. Because the daughter-in-law is new to the new house, so if she's chastised, she may feel very insecure, unstable, and not really comprehend. But if the mother's sensitive, the daughter knows exactly what's happening. She's fixed in the house. She's been there since she's born. So if she chastises her, she'll teach the daughter-in-law without creating that instability in the mind. And similarly, when Krishna wants to teach the world, he teaches the world through his very special, loving, surrendered devotees. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is closest friend of Lord Krishna. Why was he so bewildered on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? So much so, a great hero, a man who was so profoundly advanced in knowledge and devotion, he was utterly bewildered, not only in his mind, but so much so that it affected his body in such traumatic ways. He was trembling. He lost all his strength, dropped his bow. He was crying right in front of everyone. Krishna brought the chariot right in the middle of the two armies. They were the only ones in the middle. Everyone could see them. And yet this was Arjuna's condition. Krishna put Arjuna in that situation just to show the world our situation. And by the choices Arjuna made in that trauma, Krishna showed the world the choices we're supposed to make. Devaki was a mother. 6 of her children were murdered right in front of her eyes, just after taking birth. After nourishing with motherly love, perhaps 9 months within the womb, when the child first comes to appear outside, it's a time of celebration, both for the mother and the father. It's a time of great awaiting. The father sometimes is even more anxious than the mother. And the pain that the mother must endure to give birth to a child is sometimes unimaginable. What to speak of giving birth to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth. So there's a price to pay to just get an ordinary child due to our particular karma. But there's no greater joy to parents than having that child. This is very instructive. And for great things in this world, we have to pass through challenges. It is not cheap. And what to speak of all the challenges of a mother and father once the child is born. Brahmacharis, we just give a certain type of glance when babies cry in the class and they go away. But the mother and the father, 24 hours a day, they have to deal with a child that is absolutely helpless, totally dependent 24 hours a day on their attention. It's a challenge. But having that child is one of the greatest joys of this world. Along with the challenge comes perhaps the closest thing to unconditional love within the mortal sphere. The love between a mother and a child, or a father, good father and child. But here, the example is the highest love between the eternal soul and God manifesting into this world. Vasudeva and Devaki, they lived in a prison cell year after year after year. Kamsa was constantly emotionally terrorizing them. We read in this chapter how they were shackled with chains in this prison cell. That means they couldn't even walk around nicely within the cell. In today's prisons, it would be considered cruel to keep an inmate shackled with chains within their cell. And they lived like this for years. Finally, Krishna appeared. And he appeared just to assure them who he really was, with 4 arms, as Lord Vishnu. He was dressed with beautiful golden helmet, bedecked with jewels, the Kaustubhamani as a necklace hanging from his neck upon his chest, the mark of Srivats, Lakshmi Devi. He had cloth that was as brilliant as lightning, beautiful earrings. He was holding the conch shell, the disc, the club, and the lotus flower. And in the darkness of the cell at midnight, he illuminated all directions. They surrendered their hearts, they surrendered their lives to the Lord. But still Devaki, after offering prayers, in her motherly affection was afraid that if Kamsa sees Vishnu like this, he will know with absolute certainty that this is the enemy that has come to kill him. So she knew he was God. There was no question. Still, her motherly affection, she wanted to hide him. Please become like an ordinary child. so that Kamsa will not find you. So her motherly affection was prominent, and her knowledge of the Lord's Aishwarya, or supreme majesty, was subordinate. This is the nature of Devaki's love. As far as Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Krishna wanted to fulfill the desires of his devotees. Nanda and Yashoda are the eternal mother and father of Krishna in the spiritual world of Goloka. And they descend into this world to participate in the Lord's pastimes. Sutapa and his consort, they, explained by our great acharyas, they were great personalities who were partial expansions of Nanda and Yashoda in this world, who performed tremendous austerities and received the benediction of Lord Brahma, or was it Drona and Dara? Yes, Drona and Dara. They received the benediction that the Supreme Personality of Godhead would manifest beautiful pastimes in this world to attract everyone's hearts, to award the highest perfection of prema bhakti. And they wanted to serve the Lord for that mission by being his mother and father. And they wanted to assist the Lord in his most pleasurable pastimes of the spiritual world. They, as partial expansions, merged into, or were included within, the original forms of Nanda Yashoda. Srila Prabhupada explains that we can receive by Krishna's grace the love of a parent, Vatsalya Ras, in this world and in this spiritual world, like Nanda Yashoda. But no one can become Nanda Yashoda. They are directly expansions of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath in the spiritual world as the Lord's eternal mother and father. So for them, unlike Vasudeva and Devaki, their love for Krishna was so infinitely deep and intimate that they, by the power of Yogamaya, Krishna's internal potency, they had no conception of Krishna being God, Bhagavan, the absolute truth. They simply loved him as their child. Krishna wanted to experience the intimacy of that love, and he wanted to also inspire that same love within his devotees. So Krishna appeared in such a way, even when Putana, Trinavarta, Shakatasura, Bakasura, Vatsasura, Aghasura, Aristasura, Keshi. So many asuras were coming into Vrindavan. Kaliya. Krishna was eating fire. Krishna, as a little boy crawling, tore down the gigantic Arjuna trees. They were seeing the inconceivable power of the absolute truth right before their eyes every day. But the love that Krishna wanted from them and the love that they cherished in their hearts, it made them unable to recognize that our son is the absolute truth. There was always some excuse. It must be due to the fact that we planted banyan trees and dug wells and built nice roads and pious activities, and we worshiped the Supreme Lord Narayan, and we fed the Brahmins nicely, that Narayan is very pleased with us and protected our little helpless Gopal from this situation. This is how they were thinking. Even though they were seeing with their own eyes the powers of God. When Yashoda Mai saw the universe within the mouth of little Gopal, she was bewildered. Think about it, you mothers. When your child yawns and you just happen to see within the mouth the mountains, the oceans, the planets, the demigods, all human beings, the three modes of material nature personified, the entire universal form within the child of the mouth of your child. Yashoda Mai was worried, maybe my child has some sickness. Garga Muni said that your son will be very special, like Narayan himself. He will perform incredible deeds. He appears within this world with different complexions and different ages in Satya Yuga, in a white complexion, Treta Yuga red, Kali Yuga in a golden complexion. Now he has appeared with a blackish form. Please take care of him nicely. But for Yashoda Mai and Nanda, how could this be? Garga Muni, the greatest of Brahmins, has told us the greatness of our child. But at the same time, Krishna would cry, he would lie, he would steal butter, he would do so many things, he would be afraid. Kunti Devi, she was marveling at Mother Yashoda's love, that Krishna, who is feared by fear personified, is trembling, crying, lips quivering, afraid of his mother, Yashoda Mai. She was just a simple gopi, but her love had that power. And it wasn't that Krishna was just pretending or acting. By his own internal transcendental will, he's affected by the love of his devotees to the core of his heart in this way. This is Vrindavan. Because their love for Krishna was so infinitely sweet that sweetness put any conceptions of Krishna being God to rest. Let anyone say what they want, Yashoda Mai said, but I know who Krishna is. Because he loves me so much and I love him so much, we are the authorities on this subject. Let Garga Muni or anyone else talk what they want to talk. But when Krishna's hungry, he needs me to feed him. When Krishna's afraid, he runs into my arms for protection. In Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, we recognize, honor the greatness of God, how he has appeared in so many ways in different times throughout history. And we honor the Lord who appears forever in various Vaikuntha planets, the spiritual world, where the Lord, to reciprocate with different types of devotees, is appearing as Ram and Narasingha and Vamana and Narayan in his supreme majesty as the master, the controller, the enjoyer of everything and everyone. For those who surrender their hearts, their body, minds, and souls with unconditional love to such persons, they can be given entrance into Vaikuntha. But beyond is Krishna Loka. Krishna Loka has divisions: Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, which is the highest, most inclusive of all spiritual realms, we find this Madhurya Ras, the loving exchanges that are so deeply sweet that sweetness eclipses all preliminary understandings of Bhagavan, Paramatma, Brahman. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti shabdyate. That this non-dual absolute truth eternally has three features: the all-providing, all-knowing, inconceivable, omnipresent, omniscient Brahman, like the light of the sun that permeates everything, everywhere. Paramatma, the localized form of the Lord who is seated within the heart of every living being as the witness, as the guide. And Bhagavan, the supreme personality of Godhead, who performs beautiful pastimes with his loving devotees, who appears within this world in many times, in many places, to annihilate the miscreants, to reestablish the principles of religion, and to protect the devotees. But beyond that, to give pleasure to the devotees, to perform such incredible, endearing pastimes that devotees want to love him with all their hearts and souls. To attract us to detach ourselves to the sources of misery in the forms of the pursuit for pleasure within a world where everything is temporary, everything is in the process of destruction and death. And when there are endless dualities opposing each other, where these three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are implicating, complicating our lives, so that what we really want we disregard, and we remain birth after birth after birth, obsessed, addicted to what eventually is the shackle that keeps us bound to suffering. In Krishna's pastimes, they show us the true eternal world of the soul. And simply by hearing about them, speaking about them, remembering them, we can become purified forever. And through this process of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, our natural love for Krishna awakens. The Lord appears in these various forms. Once in a day of Brahma, 8,640,000,000 years, the Lord appears in his original form of Golokananda, the supreme enjoyer of Goloka, with Nanda and Yashoda, his eternal pleasure potency, Srimati Radharani, and their expansions, the Gopas and the Gopis. But even they have to endure so many difficulties while in this world. And that gives us vision and hope, so that we're not bewildered. Yashoda, Maya, and Nanda, they also had difficulties. Parjanya, who was the father of Nanda Maharaj, he was so worried because Nanda had no children, and years were passing. Devamidha was a king of the Yadu dynasty. And he had a Kshatriya wife and a Vaishya wife. From the Kshatriya wife, Surasena was born. From the Vaishya, Parjanya was born. And Surasena ruled over Mathura. And Parjanya, who was an ocean of transcendental good qualities. He was brave, learned, he loved to serve Brahmins, he loved to serve everybody. Because he was such a deep lover of the Lord, he saw everyone with equal vision and wanted to make everyone happy, to protect them, to serve them. He was given the beautiful land of Mahavan, where he had so many cows, and eventually he gave birth to 5 sons: Upananda, Abhinanda, Nanda, Sananda, and Nandana. And when it came time for the ceremony in which he would empower publicly in front of all of the Brijvasis his eldest son Upananda as the king of Vrindavan, or Mahaban, It was a very special ceremony. Gargamuni was there. Vasudev, I believe, came. Upananda was eldest. He was an ocean of good qualities also. And Parjanya, although he was so loved by everyone, he had everything the world could possibly want. They had so many cows, and the fields were so prosperous with agricultural products. Everything was growing profusely. The Brijabasis, in their own simple way as cowherd men and women, they were wealthy, they were happy, they were protected. They had everything that practically no one has in the world today. They absolutely loved their leader and felt that he was completely dedicated to their welfare. He wanted nothing for himself. When you have leaders like that, you can be very happy. Where is there such places in the world today? But still, because he was such a great devotee, he wanted to retire and leave everything behind, take vanaprastha with his wife, and go to a nearby forest called Vrindavan to spend the last days of his life, last years of his life, in a mood of complete renunciation from any other attachments except his sadhana, his loving service of the Lord. So when he proclaimed Upananda to be the next king, Upananda stood up and said, among everyone here, Nanda is most qualified. Everyone loves him, and he loves everyone. He is so honest and humble and pure. His service is so selfless. The greatest joy in my heart will be to see the most qualified person rule this Braj Bhumi. And that is Nanda Maharaj. His affection, his love has brought all of us such happiness. He's a man of such extraordinary good character. Who else but him should lead? This is Vrindavan, a place where there's no envy, where there's no selfishness, and no ego. If we actually want to enter into Vrindavan in our hearts in this life, or be transferred to Gokul at the time of death, this is the standard. If we're thinking in terms of I and mine in any way, janasya moho yamaham mameti, then we are subjected to the potential of envy and ego and greed. But when we're simply thinking in terms of samsadira haritoshanam, what is the pleasure of Krishna? Prabhupada, in his Back to Godhead, he explained, quoting from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that Krishna is like the sun and Maya is like darkness. And from Maya comes all of these dark qualities: lust and envy and greed, pride, anger, illusion. In the presence of Krishna, like the sun, the darkness cannot remain. This is Vrindavan. where everybody is everybody's well-wisher. So Upananda, he proclaimed, I want Nanda to be the king. In today's world, where people campaign and spend huge amounts of money to get elected and everything like that, it's very rare where you're the one. Upananda was the undisputed heir to the throne. There wasn't required any parliamentary votes or alliances with other political parties to somehow or other get him in. But out of love for everyone, he wanted to see his younger brother glorified in this way, and he just wanted to serve. Whatever way I could best serve, that's all I want, and this is the best way. And Nanda Maharaj, he didn't want to do it. He wanted Upananda to do it. He wanted to be servant. So here was a competition. Not the competition of who's master, but the competition of who's servant. And it was only because everybody unanimously agreed and showered blessings on Nanda Maharaj that in a very shy and reserved way, he surrendered. He surrendered to the post. He didn't fight for it. He didn't campaign for it. He didn't spread rumors about Upananda to tear him down. He surrendered because it was everyone's decision. He had already been married to the daughter of Samukha, Yashoda Mai. Yashoda, she was very well known because anywhere she went and anyone she associated with, they were blessed with good fortune in every way. This is Vrindavan. So everyone was so happy under Nanda Maharaj's leadership. They had everything. But the nature of love is who you love. You feel more concern for them than ourselves. Everybody else was having children. But Nanda Yashoda had no children. Therefore, the whole of Braj Bhumi was put into a state of great sorrow. That he loves us so much, and we love him so much. If Nanda Yashoda don't have a child, that's the greatest loss to everyone. Such unselfish devotion. And Upananda was assigned by Nanda Maharaj to be his chief minister. And Nanda Maharaj was so surrendered to Upananda that literally anything Upananda advised, Nanda Maharaj would do it. Because he was still thinking he's the one who should be king. It wasn't like the mentality of the ego that whatever you may have been and whatever you would have been, now I'm the king, so you listen to me.